really careful at saying you found it was 1, because it really might be 1.2, because you can't trust the results very much. So that's the confidence interval of the results, the confidence interval. But yeah, this is used for evaluating hypotheses and information, and what's in the parentheses is the confidence interval. You can look that up too. Anyway, talk to you later in 5BB.
Oh, I just love this stuff. This is what makes me happy. I had struggled with math in high school, and I probably still struggle with it because you got to practice it. But I mean, it doesn't come to me easily. I love this stuff. That makes so much sense the way you just explained it. Perfect sense. But so I'm not sure my hypothesis would. I think I'm going to have to conduct my own kind of study, I guess. Very interesting, though. Thank you, Bill. KF5GRH. I feel smarter.
W5FC.
Melissa, could you say that term again? Because as soon as I can get away from handling raw vegetables, I want to look it up too.
People use 95% confidence intervals. And let me see. So I think that's the standard also for medical research. So here, this is from the National Institute of Health. For example, if a study is 95% reliable with a confidence interval of 47 to 53, that means if researchers did the same study over and over again with samples of the whole population, they would get results between 47 and 53 exactly 95% of the time. The reliability in this example refers to the consistency of the measurement, or the ability to repeat it. Anyway, so look up, do a web search for confidence intervals also, and that's what's out there inside the parentheses. So, yeah, very, very important stuff. You never have, when you make a measurement, you never have an absolute result in it. You can measure a voltage with the voltmeter and come back next day and measure it, and other times, and you may get slightly different numbers. And so there's always an uncertainty. And the confidence intervals shows you, what you believe this uncertainty to be, largely based on making a lot of measurements and looking at the statistical results of those measurements. Anyway, it has to do with how you evaluate truth. Whether something is really true or not. You take a test. It could be a COVID test. Does that mean you got COVID? Well, that's what this stuff tells you. Okay, let me get out of here. Skynet starts in 8 minutes in 5BB. See you, Melissa.
Well, Tony, and thank you, Bill. No, that's exactly what I was looking for. The diagnostic sensitivity of nitroglycerin to determine cardiac chest pain was 72%, and then in parentheses, I guess the spread you were talking about, 64% to 80%, and the specificity was 37% or 34% to 41%. That the use of that tool, I don't know what's the right word for that. Anyway, thank you very much. So N5BB, yeah, Skynet's going to start. And Tony, what did you say?
Well, yeah, specificity and sensitivity are extremely important. But I just wanted to hear your term again, because now I'm done with the vegetables and I can type it in my phone and look it up. What you were, positive something ratio?
the positive likelihood ratio. At least that's the way they wrote it.
Okay, and a very quick definition of sensitivity and specificity. Sensitivity is the chance of detecting it if it's there. And a great example is mad cow disease. There is a widely used test when they process beef at a slaughterhouse to detect mad cow disease. It's incredibly sensitive. If there is mad cow disease, it's got a sensitivity of like 99.999%. It will find it. Here's the problem. It's not very specific. Its specificity is, if I remember right, less than 0.2. Specificity is the chance that what you detected really was the thing you were looking for. So this test always finds mad cow disease, just about always. But it's not very specific. It also finds 4 or 5 other things, many of which are completely innocuous. So they always have to follow up this screening test and process meat with a more specific test. So sensitivity is the chance of finding it if it's there. Specificity is the chance that you really found what you were looking for. The mad cow test is famously very sensitive, but not very specific. COVID tests are fairly sensitive. I want to say like 0.6 to 0.7. But the good news is because they use antibodies that were made from the COVID virus, they're really specific. False positives are really rare. It's like 0.999. So the mad cow disease is sensitive but not specific, lots of false positives. COVID testing is fairly sensitive, not perfect, but very specific. It hardly ever detects another coronavirus and says you've got COVID. NT5TM.
Aha! So, if nitroglycerin does relieve chest pain or cardiac chest pain, does that indicate, cardiac, coronary artery disease, for instance? So, from what you described, possibly it's fairly sensitive, 72%, or 64 to 80 was the spread, I guess you call it. But specificity was only 34 to 41%, so it may indicate other issues other than exactly the coronary artery disease. But I'm not sure what other things it's catching, if that even made sense. Anyway, great, fun discussion. Oh my goodness, we need to talk like this on Search City Simulation Radio Network next Friday. Oh, this is great stuff. I love it. All right, y'all. Well, let's wait for Skynet. Skynet, KF5GH. I'll be listening.
Yeah, it would be fun to, we could, let's have a talk about it. It would be awesome. NT5TM, I'm clear for net.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
And does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin tonight? Skynet! This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime, daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break very enthusiastically and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9. Check and seal Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the famous Echolink node 37247. Topics for tonight: astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is w5friedchicken.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is about 90 minutes long. We start with general announcements. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. National Space Society, discussion topic of the evening, what's up? Space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and the 73 round. All amateurs are licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll start with low power short time check-ins if you are one of those. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, your location, and whether you're low power short time. Please come now. Okay, then we will move right into general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I did not see the movie. Oh wait, wrong net.
Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich in Rockwall, AG 5 p.m., and I did not see the movie either.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill Palmer Springs.
I did see the movie, but I'll save that for later.
Kilo Fox 5, November X-Ray Romeo, John, Caddo Mills.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill Palmer Springs.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zoo Whiskey, Jane there, Webb heard. Okay, I'll save that for later.
This is Kilo 1, Golf Bravo Delta, Guy and Forney, and I saw the movie, but in Spanish.
Good evening, this is Alpha Golf, Niner Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving.
All right, that's a good natural pause point. Number of check-ins I've got. NT5TM Tony in Dallas, AG5PM Rich in Rockwall, K5ZBL Bill in Farmers Branch, WB5OZL Brenda in DeSoto, K5NXR John in Cato Mills, K5ZBL Mr. Bill Farmers Branch, KG5BZWJ near Weatherford, K1GRD that's Guy in Dallas, AG9SG Antonio, Dallas, N5BB Bill and Irving. Additional check-ins, please come now.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, India Victor Juliet, Justin, Red Oak.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay Mesquite.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite, Planet Earth.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform, Kilo Uniform, David, Mesquite.
Is it? Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, far, far northeast Dallas.
Kilo India 5 Victor November Bravo. This is Jeff in Little Elm.
This is Kilo India 5 Kilo Tango Zulu, Philip, White Rock Creek.
All right, let's go ahead and pick up those folks. I've got KF5IVJ Justin in Red Oak, N50F Clay in Mesquite, KF5JJ Chaz Mesquite, KG5UKU David Mesquite. Next is KG5APL Patrick not in Mesquite, he's in Dallas. W5GUS Gus, far, far northeast Dallas, KI5VNB, that's Jeff, Little Elm, KI5KTZ, that's Philip in White Rock Creek. Additional check-ins, please come now.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Kilo Golf 5 Juliet Papa Uniform, Anthony Brook on Echolink. Over.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James and Carrollton.
This is November Yankee Tango Lynn in Fort Worth.
All right, let's see here. I've got NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. I got KG5JPU. Anthony, I think you said Dallas over on Echolink. I do have you checked in. KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton. The next station I got was Len in Fort Worth. I got November Yankee Tango, but I'm not sure where to put that in your full call. Try giving me, if you would, please give you your full call one more time.
Kilo India 5 November Yankee Tango Lynn in Fort Worth.
Very good. So it's the prefix KI5NYT. That's Lynn in Fort Worth. Thank you. Let's see. Let me go over to Echolink now. Anyone who has not checked in there yet who would like to, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Echolink only. I will give you extra time.
Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango X-ray. Kelly, back home finally in Quinlan.
Okay, double checking here. I think everyone else may be checked in already. K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan, I have you checked in. All right, one final round. Anybody you'd like to join us on the initial open here, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, pretty good. Not bad. First round, 24 check-ins so far. So let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These could be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come with your call.
November Tango 5, Tango Bike.
N5BB, just in case Tony misses a very important event.
Kilo India 5, Gulf Romeo Hotel. Melissa, Shirt City.
All right, very good. We got 3 people. I've got NT5TM Tony, N5BB Bill, and KI5GRH Melissa. So, Tony, why don't you hit it off, and after that, please give it to Bill, N5BB, and then, Bill, would you please give it to Melissa, KI5GRH. Let's go.
Thank you, Tom. As folks might have guessed from my little joke about having not seen the movie, this is not our last net of the evening. We do have the Afterglow movie discussion net coming up at about 10:30 or so. Tonight we'll be talking about the 1979 TV movie pilot, Salvage, which I have tried to watch. Maybe I'll be able to watch a little of it during the net, but frankly this net is a lot more interesting than that movie, so probably not. Now, I hope Bill will amplify this because this is just a fun event, and I mainly tend to talk about how fun it is, but 1 week from today, Moon Day is coming up. This is held at the Frontiers of Flight Museum on Lebanon Avenue. That's not the passenger terminal of Love Field. It does face Love Field. It's near Love Field. But don't go and pay for parking and try to check your bags. No. This is the Frontiers of Flight Museum. What is Moon Day? This is an event that commemorates the first moon landing, which happened in July of 1969. And to help commemorate it, we educate one another. We provide lots of educational opportunities for young people and their parents about all areas of science and technology. Because obviously, if kids want to go to Moon Day, they probably want to learn more about science. This year's featured speaker is, if I remember right, the famous astronaut Fred Hayes. And, well, your chance to help is online, w5fc.org. Please sign up. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club and other clubs like AMSAT and I believe the Irving Club are all going to be participating in Moon Day. And we would all love your help and support because there's hundreds of kids and parents there at any given moment, and all of them need folks to encourage them and answer their questions and help spark their interest in science and technology. So there's a lot to do, and you're going to have a great time if you go. You'll get kind of giddy and excited because all the bouncy, happy kids and their parents are just infectious. We educate the kids. We recruit their parents as club members. N5BB from NT5TM. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Tony. This is N5BB. Yes, Moon Day. Next Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Frontiers of Flight Museum on Libban Avenue, right adjacent to the airport on the east side. Be there. It's great fun. I believe, are going to be a Dallas Amateur Radio Club table. There's definitely going to be an AMSAT table. Tom N5HYP needs people to say they'll be there. So he would appreciate it if people would contact him and let them know for sure that that they will attend. But just a moment. I am looking for Tom's message he sent. I apologize. He sent it today, and hold on. I don't find it. I don't know where it is. Anyway, Tom Schessler sent on the message. If you can help him at Moon Day, please reach him. And what I was looking for was what way he wants to be notified. And I'm just not going to be able to find his message here. Maybe later. So please help us at Moon Day in 5BB at the MSAT table. By the way, I will be at the National Space Society of North Texas chapter table. So come on by there and pick up some NASA publications and talk about space. This is N5BB. Go ahead, Melissa.
Well, that's awesome, Bill. And if you didn't get it on Moon Day, the very next weekend on Saturday, CERT City, Dallas CERT, is having a final exercise and we need victim moulage volunteers. I mean, they will moulage. You get to scream and yell and have fun and be a victim, and the responders will practice doing search and rescue and treating you, do head-to-toe assessment, and it's a lot of fun, and I will be one of the people who can help take care of you, keep you cool, and refrigerated in between sessions. Anyway, we need help on final. It's at the Dallas Fire Academy on the 23rd, and if you're interested, just email me, and I'm on QRZ. And that's it. KF5GRH. CERT City.
And if you can help with the AMSAT table at Moon Day, a week from today, contact Tom Schessler, N5HYP, at N5HYP at ARRL.net. This is N5BB.
All right, thank you for all the announcements. Does anyone need any fills? Have any questions? Please come with your call. All right, very good. Glad everyone is participating. Moon Day is a very big deal over at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. And because you volunteer, you get to get into the museum for FREE. So please check out the various contact info or go to the Club Web site, which is w5fc.org, for additional information. But we'd love to see you there. It is a lot of fun. And as you probably have guessed, amateur radio, astronomy, and public service and space and all that seems to cross over. Just about everybody who goes to this event is affiliated with more than one organization. So there's a lot of crossover for obvious reasons. We get brainy people. It'll be a lot of fun, too. The kids always ask really great questions. Please give them the right answers this year. Well, last year we had a kid who thought there was air in space. Hot air, but air in space. Okay. And that's not, well, air and space do go together, actually. Okay, let's see. Do we have any other announcements or bulletins? Please come now. All right. Sorry, I'm having a little problem with my voice this evening, so let me see. I'll do the AMSAT thing here real quick. AMSAT Amateur Radio Group. 2 nets available in Dallas. Actually, there's 3, including the one from Houston. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. Find it under AMSAT, under the group section. A live audio link is also available at amsatnet.com. If you want to learn about amateur radio satellite, that's one of the nets. That's the national one. At the same time on Tuesday evenings here on this repeater is AMSAT East. This is with Tom, N5HYP, who you heard about earlier. He will answer all of your questions. The other net is one that you can kind of check into, but it's an information-only net. It provides information about AMSAT. Tom, on the other hand, will answer questions about AMSAT and amateur satellite use. So we think we got the better net. Also, Dallas AMSAT West is Wednesday evenings, again with Tom, at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater at 147.140 megahertz, PL 110.9 on a positive offset. We have a number of DARC hosted nets here on Mondays at 7 o'clock. First week is Ham Fixin's net. Talk about cooking, recipes, even restaurants if you'd like. And on the second week, we have MCOM 101. MCOM 101 is a non-denominational emergency communications net. Find out about emergency communications. Maybe talk to some of the folks that provide services to served agencies. Great place to find out if there's a group out there that you might want to join. Third week is second Ham Fixin's net, second helping of Ham Fixin's net. Fourth week is GeekNet. GeekNet. We expand beyond just amateur radio and talk about all sorts of geeky things. So the fifth week, if there is one, is a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is always encouraged. It's usually some sort of event where everyone is involved. Then Fridays, we have CERT City at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications by CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, who you just heard and gave the announcement, is net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe Friday at 8 p.m. CERT City. All are welcome. Saturdays, of course, is the night of nets, starting at 7 o'clock with TechNet, which you just missed, Skynet, which you're listening to right now, and then the Afterglow Movie Net, which I'll tell you about in just a second. Also daily is the ARRL National Traffic System Training Net at 6:30. Here's where it is both the training net, where you can learn about traffic handling, and also how to conduct yourself on a formalized net. If you're new to amateur radio, that's a must. And you can make no mistakes because, well, quite frankly, it's a training net. You can do no wrong. Even if you set your own radio on fire, it's perfectly okay because it is a training net. Now, let me tell you about the Afterglow Movie Net. Tony mentioned it. He sounds very excited about tonight's movie. As you can tell, he's watching through the bottom of a mayonnaise jar because that's about the best quality we have for this movie. But here is the synopsis. Harry looked at the hangar full of crap. Way in the back was the Voyager spacecraft, unplugged. That thing had consumed an entire block before Harry discovered the thing still had power and was threatening the neighborhood. Fortunately, the next-door neighbor phoned the police. Next to it, an old X-34 speeder picked up on the dark market. Next were rows and rows of discarded stuff. A slightly irradiated ion pod, an alien egg table lamp, an invalidated Metro multipass, a second-hand AE-35 transmitter unit, and of course, the white elephant of the entire shack, a Romulan Warbird K7 cloaking device that only ran on 220 volts. What a stash! Harry acquired all of it over the years, and he intended to not end there. On the moon, there were other treasures, all owned by NASA, but untouched. If he thought it through, maybe he could have just visited each astronaut and bought the stuff they stole from their missions and sell it all off online. Except there was no online yet. eBay was still years from creation. Join us for the questionable and short-lived pilot to the Salvage One TV series, which ran 2 seasons. Imagine. Called Salvage, an ABC movie that is week from 1979 tonight at 10:30 p.m. You can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Okie dokie, let's see. Next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events and where and when you can look through a telescope. Chaz, KF5JJ, what do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tom. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, July the 22nd. That's just in a couple of weeks. The meeting at 7:30 p.m. And the meeting will be held in person at the University of Dallas and also will be held on Zoom. The featured speaker will be Noah Pearson. He's a PhD in physics, is at Montana State University. His topic will be black holes. Should be pretty interesting. Now, let's see now. The Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. We have them on, I think, the first, second, and third Saturdays now. Don't have the fourth Saturdays covered yet. I don't think today's happened because of the clouds and the rain showers that were in the area. But Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night so that there would be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. So, to check out that information and more, go to texasastro.org. That gives you up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And, Tom, I have a question for you. Bob the cat has become a regular. Can we check him in? I know he doesn't have a call sign, but can we check in Bob the cat? This is KF5JJ.
Well, of course we can, Chaz. Bob has always been a major part of these nets anyway. He's helped misplace your script and done other things which are really very cat-like. So no problem. We've got you covered. All right. Thank you. We will be back to Bob and Chaz here in a little bit since he has a couple of segments, and Bob will help, I'm sure, in the way he always knows how. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. Bill, you've kind of given some things, but if you got additional info, why don't you go ahead? Bill, N5BB, please go ahead from KE5ICX.
Well, of course, this is N5BB. By the way, sometimes if we can't hear Chaz or if his voice is distorted, it's because Bob the cat has his tongue. Okay, Chaz. I'll let you continue rolling on the floor laughing. Anyway, the National Space Society has a local North Texas chapter, which is award-winning. In fact, we won the award as the best chapter of the year at the 2022 International Space Development Conference up in Washington, D.C. I was there and saw the award being presented to our group. The National Space Society has a monthly meeting on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. So our next meeting is tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 p.m. in Irving. at Spring Creek Barbecue. This is at the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline, across the highway from Irving Mall. Visitors are welcome. We get together at 3:30 p.m. The actual meeting presentation, the speaker, begins at 4 p.m. Again, visitors are welcome. And the content of this meeting, I forgot to pull up. I've got it here somewhere, but maybe I can find it before I stop talking. We'll see. Anyway, here it is. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to play a NASA video of the history and highlights of the Apollo program. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Play a NASA video of the history and highlights of the Apollo program. And the reason is because as the 53rd anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing approaches, and Moon Day is coming up, the VIP speaker at Moon Day will be retired NASA Apollo 13 astronaut Fred Hayes. Yes, Apollo 13. It wasn't just a movie with Tom Hanks. And if I remember correctly, Fred Hayes was the astronaut that got very ill during that mission. So he will be there at Moon Day as the VIP speaker. So, lots of exciting things happening. Also, the National Space Society, 3 of our members, including me, I was one of them, went to an event at the Perot Science Museum on Thursday of this week, 2 days ago. And the event was for teachers, for elementary school and secondary school teachers. And it was about teaching kids about the James Webb Telescope, about thermal transfer and how the spacecraft needs to be kept cold in the telescope and where it is and all kinds of things. So it wasn't very incredibly technical. It was mostly showing the teachers how they can do some little experiments with the kids to show things about, temperature and thermal things. It was really pretty cool. They had some special thermal paper. You put your hand on it for a few seconds and take it away, and you can see this ghost image of your handprint. And we put different materials in there to insulate it, and did some other experiments about, this is from the elementary school group, about how to talk about temperature and thermal things and heat transfer with kids. Why? Because there are 5 layers insulating with this big sun shield, insulating the James Webb Space Telescope from the heat of the sun and the Earth. So there's another event coming up. This coming event will be on Tuesday. And this is another announcement that we should have made already. The James Webb Space Telescope first images have been embargoed. They're going to be released publicly this coming Tuesday morning, July the 12th, at 9:30 a.m. It's 9:30 a.m. in the morning, local time. You can look at NASA TV or the NASA website. There's the NASA YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see this event live. And again, several of us National Space Society members, including me, will be at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History. It's got a horrible acronym, FWMSH, the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History, which is a pretty neat science museum in Fort Worth, in the Museum District. And we'll be there starting at 9:30 on Tuesday for the images to come down, and we'll be there for several hours with our table with information from NASA. Anyway, lots of fun things going on with James Webb Space Telescope. And by the way, the capstone mission to the moon was good, and then they lost communication, and then they got communication back. So the last I heard was they're back in communication with Capstone, which is a real neat CubeSat that's going to go in the same orbit as the Lunar Gateway space station. Lots of things going on in space. That's all I've got inside BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. And let's see here. Oh, I met Fred Hayes twice. He's a nice guy. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and check in KB8DAA. That's Catherine over in Addison. She's on Echolink. And JJ, N5IMS in Carrollton, doing his punny stuff over on Echolink. Don't forget, there's a whole other thing going on over on Echolink, which is always interesting. Okay, let's see here. Let me go ahead and get started on the discussion topic of the evening. So as net control, I get to pick that topic. So I decided, what the heck, let's do Starship. We haven't done that in a while, and some of the updates. So what is a Starship? SpaceX is developing Starship to carry people and cargo to Mars, the Moon, and other far-flung destinations. The system consists of two elements, both of which are designed to be fully and rapidly reusable. A huge first-stage booster called the Super Heavy, and a 165-foot tall upper-stage spacecraft called Starship. Starship prototypes have conducted a handful of high-altitude test flights to date, but the vehicle is yet to go orbital. SpaceX plans to change that soon and is gearing up to launch an orbital test mission with the system, which will also mark the spaceflight debut of the Super Heavy. And these preparations are ramping up. Ship 24, the Starship vehicle that will fly the orbital mission, just rolled out the space launch pad at a Starbase at SpaceX South Texas facility. Company representatives announced via Twitter on July 6th. In the same post, SpaceX shared 3 pictures of the big spacecraft on the moon. Ship 24 will launch atop the Super Heavy known as Booster 7. That rocket is already at the pad and may conduct a static fire test, a pre-launch trial in which the rocket engines are lit while the vehicle stays anchored on the ground in the coming days. Both Starship and Super Heavy are powered by Super X's next generation of Raptor engine. The spacecraft sports 6 Raptors, and the booster features a whopping 33, as SpaceX showed in another recent Twittergram that shares photos of both vehicles, all of which their engines install. For comparison, SpaceX Workhorse Falcon 9 rocket incorporates 9 of the company's Merlin engines in its first stage and 1 Merlin in the upper stage. The Merlins are considerably smaller and less powerful than the Raptors. SpaceX recently cleared a significant regulatory hurdle on the road to Starship's first orbital launch. Last month, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration announced SpaceX could continue its Starship work at Starbase, provided the company takes more than 75 actions to mitigate the effects of that work on the surrounding area, which is a biodiversity hotspot. There are other such boxes to check, however. For example, the FAA will still need to grant SpaceX a launch license ahead of the upcoming orbital attempt. So what is the Starship? It's a fully reusable super heavy lift launch vehicle currently developed by SpaceX, an American aerospace manufacturer. It's the tallest and most powerful launch vehicle ever built. Starship is a 2-stage to orbit launch vehicle consisting of a Super Heavy booster stage and the Starship second stage. Both Starship stages are designed for rapid reuse for vertical landing. Both use use liquid oxygen plus liquid methane for propellant and are powered by Raptor engines. Starship is designed to deliver 100 tons or 224,000 pounds to low Earth orbit. Once in orbit, the spacecraft will be refueled by Starship tankers for the transport to higher orbits or destinations in the inner solar system. Then, depending on the mission, the spacecraft can either enter the planet's atmosphere or use its engines to land retropropulsively or be left in outer space. Starship launch sites at Starbase in Texas and Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the two offshore platforms, are, as of July 2022, in construction. They will be the starting point for many planned space missions, made possible due to the rocket's reduced launch costs and increased launch frequency. In the short term, Starship will deploy satellites and space probes, serve commercial astronauts, and explore the moon via the Artemis program. In the long term, the rocket may aid SpaceX's ambition of colonizing Mars and enable fast travel between Earth's spaceports. SpaceX had envisioned a large-capacity launch vehicle concept since as early as 2005. Over the next dozen years, the vehicle's design and construction techniques were refined, specifying the methane fuel in 2012 and stainless steel construction in 2019. Starship's development program adopted an iterative and incremental methodology, meaning frequent prototypes, construction, testing, and refinement. As of July 2022, the program has achieved important milestones such as operating the Raptor engine in vehicles, Starhopper, and demonstrating the use of stabilizing flaps. That's Starship SN8 through 15. A full-scale orbital test flight is expected to take place by the end of the year, maybe as early as next month. SpaceX has been working closely with NASA experts during the HLS base period of performance to inform its lander design and ensure it meets NASA's performance requirements and human spaceflight standards for landing on the moon. Key tenets for the safe systems. These agreed-upon standards range from areas of engineering, safety, health, and medical technical areas. This is an exciting time for NASA, and especially the Artemis team, said Lisa Watson-Morgan, program manager for HLS at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. During the Apollo program, we proved it was possible to do seemingly the impossible, land humans on the moon. By taking a collaborative approach and working with industry while leveraging NASA's proven technical expertise and capabilities, we will return American astronauts to the moon's surface once again, this time to explore new areas for longer periods of time. SpaceX HLS Starship, designed to land on the moon, leans on the company's tested Raptor engines and flight heritage of the Falcon and Dragon vehicles. Starship includes a spacious cabin and 2 airlocks for astronaut moonwalks. The Starship architecture is intended to evolve to a fully reusable launch and landing system designed for travel to the moon, Mars, and other destinations. The HLS award was made under the Next Space Technologies for Exploration Partnerships, or Next Step 2, and Board Agency, Appendix A, Board Agency Announcement. I think that's just a reference. In parallel with executing the Appendix H award, NASA intends to implement a competitive procurement for sustainable crewed lunar surface transportation services that will provide human access to the lunar surface using the gateway on a regular recurring basis beyond the initial crewed demonstration mission. The SpaceX Mars missions has been a central theme of SpaceX and closely associated with its Starship rocket. A fully reusable and super heavy lift launch vehicle, the company was founded by Elon Musk with the goal of reducing space transportation costs, enabling the colonization of Mars. As an American spacecraft manufacturer, space launch provider, and satellite communications corporation, the company has achieved numerous important milestones, paving the way for the first human mission to Mars. Therefore, unlike many other proposals, SpaceX Mars program is generally considered more feasible and taken more seriously by the space industry. The basic tenet of SpaceX Mars mission is to reduce the cost of going to Mars, leading to the formation of large Martian settlements. By forming such settlements, it's claimed that this will ensure the long-term survival of the human species. Early missions to Mars will probably feature a small fleet of Starship spacecraft funded by private-public partnerships. Once infrastructure is established and launch costs is reduced further, more people are expected to go to Mars to establish the first Martian colonies. The return from Mars to Earth will also be available. The plan has been criticized for being not thorough and impractical, as it solely focuses on the transportation aspects of colonizing Mars. So next up, the test flights of the Starship system, a two-stage orbit launch vehicle, will launch to an orbital trajectory, will always consist of both the ship Starship and also serves as the second stage and also a booster, Super Heavy. On early flights, the ship will be merely a second stage test article, as no cargo is planned for the early flights of the iterative test campaign. The Starship orbital test flight will originate from Starbase, Texas. The booster stage will separate approximately 170 seconds into flight. The booster will then perform a partial return and land in the Gulf of Mexico, approximately 20 miles from the shore. The orbital Starship will continue on flying between the Florida states. It will achieve orbit until performing a powered targeted landing approximately 62 miles off the northwest coast of Hawaii in a soft ocean landing. This mission is planned over the next couple of weeks. So there you have it. That's the Starship program in a nutshell and what they plan on doing over the next few weeks and even years. Hope this was informative. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer? Please come with your call.
Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato, W5BLT, Bill.
Okay, W5BLT, Bill, I have you checked in. Did you have a question too?
Oh, I'm sorry, no question. Just want to check in.
Very good. I have you checked in. Don't forget, there's a movie tonight. All right, well, this is a good place to stop. I'll ask and see if there's any additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean at Fort Worth.
Okay, I picked up two more. I got W5BLT. I got Bill. Okay, and KB5SOK, Sean over in Fort Worth. Let's see, I got someone from Hawaii. Hello, and Clay Short. Both of you, welcome. They're non-hams, but they're over on, I think they're non-hams. They're over on the YouTube link there, watching the video. Okay, next up is Chaz, K5JHA, and Bob the Cat, K5BOB or KBOB. Who knows? Chaz, tell us what's up.
Why, thank you, Tom. This could get dangerous. Bob is on the prowl right now. Yes, this is KF5JHA. My degree's in astrophysics, and I work at the Astrophysics Labs and Geology Labs at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we call this segment of Skynet What's Up. And if you look on the video version, there's a handsome-looking guy right there on the screen right now. Thank you, Tom. No, I'm not talking about you, Tom. On July the 7th, the moon was at its first quarter phase, so the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. On July the 13th, the moon will be full. Also on July the 13th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 357,264 kilometers. And we've already talked about this. I'll talk about it more. On July the 16th is Moon Day, the Frontiers of Flight Museum. Did you know our net control is actually a volunteer down there? Yeah. More details about Moon Day in a moment. On July the 20th, the moon will be at third quarter phase. On July the 26th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,274,000 kilometers. And the moon will be at its new phase on July the 28th. Slide Master, slide number 3, please. In a few days, on July the 13th, in the early morning northeastern sky, the planet Venus will be about 1/3 of a degree away from the Crab Nebula, also known as M1, the first object on Messier's list of objects. A telescope will be required to observe the Crab Nebula. The Crab Nebula is the remains of a supernova that exploded in the year 1054. Well, at least that's when we saw it, was in the year 1054 AD. It is kind of interesting that Venus, the brightest thing in the sky, other than the sun or the moon, and is now the planet that is very close to one of the brightest things that's ever been in the sky, other than the sun or the moon. Interesting. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. On July the 15th, the moon and Saturn will be in conjunction in early morning southern sky. You can actually see it earlier in the evening. I mean, you could go out probably a little bit after midnight and see it rising in the southeastern sky. But you usually get up early in the morning to look at these morning things. Slide Master, slide number 5, please. Also on July 15th, a comet in the evening sky, Comet 27K2 Pan-STARRS, will be visible in telescopes with its closest approach to the Earth and a very close encounter to the M object M10, a globular star cluster. The comet is the brightest we've had in a while, but a telescope will be needed to observe it because it's at magnitude 8.7. We haven't had any really bright comets in quite a while, and this one will be interesting, especially for astrophotographers. I want to thank my friend Huey, E5PLL, for letting me know about this last week. We're up to slide number 6 now. On slide 6, it should show July the 16th, the Frontiers of Flight Museum, the celebration of Moon Day. I believe it's the 14th annual, if I remember right. I started there at Moon Day number 1, 14 years ago. Wait, I'm only 16 years old. I don't know how that works. Slide Master, slide number 7. Moon Day activities will include presentations from famous persons. You've already heard this. Fred Hayes, a crew member of Apollo 13. Yes, he was the one that got sick. And we have presentations from Dr. Billy Cheek, KF5PDS, one of our net controls here at Skynet. But of course, last but not least, yours truly, Chaz Hayfeet, KF5JHA, will also be doing a presentation on moon rocks. It should be interesting. I believe that the DARC will be setting up a table. You've already heard AMSAT will. I believe lots of other tables will be set up as well. So it'll be a fun day for everyone. Remember, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Slide Master, slide number 8, please. On July the 19th, the moon and Jupiter will be in conjunction in the early morning southern sky. Slide number 9. On July the 21st, the moon and Mars will be in conjunction in the early morning southeastern sky. If you haven't looked in the early morning sky, you're going to see all sorts of planets over there. Mercury is going to be kind of low to see anymore, but Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn are all there in the morning sky. Should be an interesting thing to see. Okay, where was I? I believe I'm up to slide number 10. On July the 29th, the moon will be, and Mercury will be in conjunction in the early evening sky at the end of this month. That would be in the northwestern sky. So Mercury swings around into the evening sky then. And slide number 11, please. On the night of July the 29th and 30th, there are not going to be one and not two, but 3 meteor showers that have maximums at the same time. The 3 meteor showers are the Alpha Capricornids, the Southern Delta Aquarids, and the July Gamma Draconids. Now, how can I tell what meteor comes from which meteor shower? Can be determined by watching which direction the meteor has originated from. The thin, waxing crescent moon will not interfere with the observing of the meteor showers. The best time to watch the meteor showers will be after midnight and before dawn. One of the best places that I suggest to go observe meteor showers is one of the 89 Texas state parks and wildlife areas, and most of them are far away from the city lights. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 12, please. And once again, the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be on Friday, July the 22nd at 7:30 p.m. It'll be in person at the University of Dallas and also held on Zoom. And we also have the Saturday night observing sessions that have begun again. Now, to get detailed information about all this and much more, go to the website texasastro.org. All right, Slide Master, slide number 13. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question. Well, they must be questionless or shy, one of the two. Slide Master, slide number 14. So as the moon waned at the end of June, so these words of this segment of Skynet, stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what was up. And this is Chaz, KF5, JHA. Back to our net control, Tom. I'm going to call you Slide Master instead of my usual Grandpa Skynet. It's back to you, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Chaz. And always interesting. 3 meteor showers? Boy, that's a real downpour. This is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Skynet. Next up is space exploration and space history, and Brenda has pulled duty on this, WB50ZL. Brenda, the net is yours.
Thank you. This is WB50ZL. All right, in news, the Webb telescope is about to release its first images on July 12th at 10:30 Eastern Daylight Time. The first images will be available. And here's a list of the first images. The Karina Nebula is one of the largest and brightest nebulae in the sky, located approximately 7,600 light years away in the southern constellation Carina. Nebulae are stellar nurseries where stars form. The Karina Nebula is home to many massive stars several times larger than the Sun. WASP 96b spectrum. WASP 96b is a giant planet outside of our solar system composed mainly of gas. The planet, located nearly 1,150 light years from Earth, orbits its star every 3 to 4 days. It's about half the size mass of Jupiter, and its discovery was announced in 2014. Southern Ring Nebula. The Southern Ring, or 8-burst nebula, is a planetary nebula, an expanding cloud of gas surrounding a dying star. It is nearly half a light year in diameter and is located approximately 2,000 light years away from Earth. Stephan's Quintet, about 290 million light years away. Stephan's Quintet is located in the constellation Pegasus. It is notable for being the first compact galaxy group ever discovered in 1877. 4 of the 5 galaxies within the quintet are locked in a cosmic dance of repeated close encounters. SMACS 0723, massive foreground galaxy clusters magnify and distort the light of objects behind them, permitting a deep field of view into both the extremely distant and intrinsically faint galaxy populations. Next, motorless sailplane for exploring Mars, Source Albatross. The huge success of the Mars helicopter Ingenuity has proven it's possible to explore other planets from the air, or the space above the ground. And researchers are working on a variety of flying craft concepts for future planetary missions. To fill in our knowledge of Mars between rovers of the surface and orbiters in space, researchers from the University of Arizona have proposed an experimental sailplane that operates without a motor and that could sail through the Martian air for days at a time. You have this really important critical piece of this planetary boundary layer, like in the first few kilometers above the ground, said Alexander Kling, a research scientist in NASA's Mars Climate Modeling Center, in a statement. This is where all the exchanges between the surface and atmosphere happen. This is where the dust is picked up and sent into the atmosphere, where trace gases are mixed, where modulation of large-scale winds by mountain valley flows happen, and we just don't have very much data about it. The idea is to fill this gap with a wind-powered sailplane that could glide through the air when there is enough wind, and also use a technique called dynamic soaring when the vertical wind isn't strong enough to keep it in the air. Sailplanes could be released from small satellites called CubeSats or carried into the atmosphere by balloons. And NASA's Capstone pulls off its first targeting maneuver on the journey to the moon. NASA's Capstone successfully completed its first trajectory correction maneuver, which started at 11:30 a.m. EDT Thursday. This is the first in a series of thruster burns over the next few months to more accurately target Capstone's transfer orbit to the moon. The maneuver lasted just over 11 minutes and changed the spacecraft's velocity by about 45 miles an hour. Capstone's next trajectory correction maneuver is targeted for Saturday, July 9th. Capstone is now 289,000 miles from Earth beyond the orbit of the moon. Capstone will loop back around to arrive to its lunar orbit. It's called a rectilinear halo orbit, or NRHO, November 13th. Capstone will fly in the NRHO for at least 6 months to study the dynamics of the orbit, which is the same one intended for Gateway, a lunar space station for science and human exploration under Artemis. 2 technology demonstrations on Capstone could allow future spacecraft to navigate near the moon without as much tracking required from Earth. And space-related birthdays. Harrison Schmitt was born July 3rd, 1935. He flew on Apollo 7. Richard Garriott, July 4th, 1961. He was on Soyuz TMA-13/TMA-12. Robert Michael White, July 6th, 1924. X-15 Flight 62. Kevin A. Ford, July 7th, 1960. STS-128, Soyuz TMA-06M Expedition 3334. Norman Thagard, July 3rd, 1943. He flew on STS-7, 51B, 30, 42, and Soyuz TM-21, Mir EO-18, and STS-71. Christopher Loria, July 9th, 1960, no missions. Terrence T. Henricks, July 5th, 1952, STS-44, 55, 70, and 78. John Casper, July 9th, 1943, STS-36, 54, 62, and 77. And honorable mention on astronaut, July 7th, 1907, Robert Heinlein, science fiction writer. While he was not an astronaut, he inspired many people like myself to love space. All right, space history. July 9th, 1954, the X-15 project began, and NACA met with USAF, Navy Bureau Air representatives to propose the X-15 as an extension of the Cooperative Rocket Research Aircraft Program. The NACA proposal was accepted as a joint effort, and a memorandum of understanding was signed on December 23rd, naming NACA as the technical director of the project with advice from a joint research airplane committee. And in July of 1992, Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, formerly designated D/1993F2, broke apart in July of 1992 and collided with Jupiter in July of 1994, providing the first direct observation of an extraterrestrial collision of solar system objects. This generated a large amount of coverage in the popular media, and the comet was closely observed by astronomers worldwide. The collision provided new information about Jupiter and highlighted its possible role in reducing space debris in the inner solar system. And I remember watching that through a pretty good telescope. It was a singular experience. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. And boy, I let a lot of birthdays as well. Let's see here. Next up is Chaz, K5JJ, and Bob the Cat for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Chaz and Bob, the net is yours.
Thank you. I'm glad that Bob is resting comfortably beside the computer and not on top of it. Slide number 15, Slide Master. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in North Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covers the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Serpus, the snake. And why am I telling fish jokes over on Echolink? I don't know. Anyway, quoting from Burnham's Celestial Handbook, one of those need-to-have books, actually it's a three-book set that you need to have as an astronomer. Serpus, the snake, is a symbol of the divine healer. It came to be the god of medicine, and of course you see that as a symbol for healing to this day. It appears in the sky with Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. Serpus is the only star grouping completely divided into two pieces, with Ophiuchus in between. Serpus, the head, is on the western side of Ophiuchus, and Serpus, the tail, is on the east side of Ophiuchus. So, Slide Master, slide number 16, please. This is why you stayed up this late for Skynet, is because of the snake jokes that are coming your way. Hold on. So what is a snake's favorite subject in school? Well, of course, it's history. What do you call a snake that's exactly 3.14 feet long? That would be a python. Why can't you play jokes on snakes? Because you can never pull one of their legs. They don't have any. What do you call a snake without any clothes on? Snakehead. What do you call a hypothetical situation where a snake chases an agent from point A to point B? The Python-Korean theorem. I don't know, that didn't work out so well, did it? Okay. Why can't snakes rob a bank? Because they're unarmed. And a bonus question, what snake do you use to clean your car windows? A windshield viper, of course. Slide Master, slide number 17, please. Alpha Serpens, its name means the serpent's neck, which marks the star's location in Serpens. The star is an optical triple star with two faint visual companions. In an 8-inch telescope, the primary star looks sort of a yellow-white. Delta Serpens is a double star in an 8-inch telescope at 126 power, splits nicely when the seeing settles down. The primary looks white, and while the secondary looks a yellow-white. This may be an illusion due to the brightness difference between the two. Slide Master, slide number 18, please. M5 is a bright globular cluster in Serpens. When you think of a globular clusters, you often think of M13 and Hercules. M13 is certainly better known than M5, but Walter Scott Houston pointed out an interesting paradox in his Deep Sky Wonders column. It may come to a surprise to learn that M5 is actually listed to be a tenth of a magnitude brighter in the Sky Catalog 2000 than M13. Both M13 and M5 are similar in size, too. In fact, M5 is the brightest globular cluster in the northern hemisphere of the sky, and indeed is surpassed by only two southern globular clusters, Omega Centaur and 47 Tucanae. M5 is visible to the naked eye under dark skies, and an 8-inch telescope. M5 is nicely framed and resolved at 126 power. Slide Master, slide number 19, please. M16 is the Eagle Nebula, or the Star Queen Nebula. In spite of its popular name of the Eagle Nebula, M16 is not just a nebula. It also includes the associated open cluster of stars. When you look at M16 in a telescope, the cluster is what you usually first notice. The nebula itself is much harder to make out in smaller telescopes, but in telescopes, the cluster is easily found. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 20, please. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Serpens, the snake. I'm just giving you a sampling of a few of those. With last count, the Astronomical League has 73 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide Master, slide number 21. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Serpens, the snake. And I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson, Dennis Harwell for the research words and deep sky objects that I use and borrow and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next time I'll look at the constellation that's in between the two parts of Serpens, Ophiuchus, the snake handler. And this is KF5, JHA, backdoor net control, KE5, ICX. 73, everyone.
Thank you, Chaz, for both segments you did this evening, the lion's share of the work, and thank Bob to wake him up and tell him he did a good job as well. And this is KE5ICX, net control for tonight's Skynet. So the next segment's mine, space launches for this week. I've got a few to tell you about. Tomorrow evening, July 10th through 11th, there will be Starlink 3-1 launch. This is from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Falcon 9 will launch another batch of Starlink Internet satellites. This is the first dedicated mission deploying satellites into the new Starlink shell at an inclination of 97.6 degrees to the equator. Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Pacific Ocean. July 13th will be a launch from ZLV Kourou, French Guiana. An Aerospace Vega C rocket will launch the Lars 2 satellite for ASI, the Italian space agency. The spherical Lars 2 satellite is covered in laser mirrors to enable precise tracking from the ground and enable research into geodynamics and general relativity. This will mark the inaugural flight of the European's new Vega C rocket, featuring a more powerful first stage motor, an enlarged second stage, an improved liquid-fueled upper stage, and a new payload fairing design. Next we have, no earlier than July 14th, will be SpaceX CRS-25. This will be launched from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. There will be a Dragon 2 spacecraft on its fifth cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. The flight is the 25th mission in SpaceX conducted under the Commercial Resupply Services contract with NASA. Sometime in this summer, launching from SLC-2W, Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, a Firefly Alpha rocket will launch its second test flight with a ride-share payload consisting of multiple unspecified small satellites. Also in July, this one from Wencheng, China, this Chinese Long March 5B rocket will launch the Wentian Laboratory Module, the second major element of China's space station, which is currently in low Earth orbit. That'll launch on a Long March 5B rocket. Also, soon, we don't know exactly when, but Tropics 3 and 4 will launch from SLC-46 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. This will launch a second pair of two small CubeSats for NASA's Tropics program. The time-resolved observation of precipitation structure and storm intensity with a constellation of small sats or tropics mission will measure environmental and inner core conditions of tropical cyclones. Then the one we were talking about earlier, Starship, the orbital test flight. This will launch from Starbase Boca Chica Beach, Texas. The Super Heavy and Starship launch vehicle will launch on its first orbital test flight. The mission will attempt to travel around the world for nearly one full orbit, resulting in a re-entry and splashdown of the Starship near Hawaii. Then finally, on July 31st, an Atlas V. This will launch from SLC-41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The United States Alliance Atlas V rocket, designated AV-097, will launch the U.S. Space Force space-based infrared system geosynchronous satellite, or SPIRS GEO-6, for mission missile early warning detection. The rocket will fly in the 421 vehicle configuration with a 4-meter fairing, 2 solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. And that's it. That's all of the launches that coming up in the next few weeks. All right, let me go ahead and find my pen. There it is. I'll take additional check-ins. Anybody who would like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
Kilo India 5, Uniform Julia, Dustin in Dallas.
All right, very good. I've got KI5UUJ, Justin in Dallas. Next up is Brenda again, WB5OZL. Brenda, you have something for us on recent astronomical discoveries. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled 8,000 kilometers per second, star with the shortest orbital period around a black hole discovered. Researchers at the University of Cologne and Masaryk University and Brno, Czech Republic, have discovered the fastest known star, which travels around a black hole in record time. The star is 4716 orbits Sagittarius A star, the black hole in the center of our Milky Way, in 4 years, and reaches a speed of around 8,000 kilometers per second. S4716 comes as close as 100 AU to the black hole, a small distance by astronomical standards. 1 AU corresponds to 149,597,870 kilometers. In the vicinity of the black hole at the center of our galaxy is a densely packed cluster of stars. This cluster, called S-cluster, is home to well over 100 stars that differ in their brightness and mass. S-stars move particularly fast. One prominent member, S2, behaves like a large person sitting in front of you in a movie theater. It blocks your view of what's important, says Dr. Florian Piesecker, lead author of the new study. The view into the center of our galaxy is therefore often obscured by S2. However, in brief moments, we can observe the surroundings of the central black hole. By means of continuously refining methods of analysis, together with observations covering almost 20 years, the scientists now identified without a doubt a star that travels around the central supermassive black hole in just 4 years. A total of 5 telescopes observed the star, with 4 of these 5 being combined into one large telescope to allow even more accurate and detailed observations. For a star to be in a stable orbit so close and fast in the vicinity of a supermassive black hole was completely unexpected and marks the limit that can be observed with traditional telescopes, said Piesecker. Moreover, the discovery sheds a new light on the origin and evolution of the orbit of fast-moving stars in the heart of the Milky Way. The short-period compact orbit of S4716 is quite puzzling. Michael Zajac, an astrophysicist at Masaryk University in Brno, who was involved in the study, said, "Stars cannot form so easily near the black hole. S4716 had to move inwards, for example, by approaching other stars and objects in the S-cluster, which caused its orbit to shrink significantly," he added. That's it. This is from ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Let's see here. We still have time. We got 8 more minutes left, so I can give you a few satellite passes over the next few days. The International Space Station, our favorite target. This information, by the way, comes from heavensabove.com. You can go there and put in your longitude and latitude, and you too will get this valuable information. Next good pass is July 11th. July 11th, minus 3.7 magnitude out of the southwest to reach its highest point at 75 degrees at 22:29. Out of the northwest and fall to the northeast at 22:32. July also has a good pass, minus 0.1 magnitude. This is at just after midnight, 6:45. I'm sorry, 0006:45. 6 minutes after midnight, reaches highest point at 6:51, and then will fall. Wait a minute. 12. Let's see. Well, actually, there's 3 passes. Here's the one I wanted. Minus 3.7 magnitude at 21:38 out of the south-southwest. South-southwest. It'll be at 21:41. Reaches its highest point at 52 degrees, and then falls at 21:44. So it's a triple header. It actually flies over 3 times with visible passes that day. July 13th, another one of those three passes. This one's minus 3.8 magnitude at 5:46 a.m. out of the northwest, reaches its highest point at 5:50 at 79 degrees, and then falls to 5:53 to the southeast. The X-37B is next. That's the winged U.S. Space Force vehicle that lands over at Cape Kennedy when it finishes its mission. This one has a pass on July 11th, 0.3 magnitude at 2213, reaches its highest point at 2260 at 64 degrees, and then goes into shadow immediately after at 2216. Next is July 13th, 0.4 magnitude at 2118 out of the west-northwest, reaches highest point at 2121 at 65 degrees, and will fall 2124 at the southeast. Next is Envisat. When all else fails, you can always find this one, the defunct weather satellite that is in polar orbit. There are three good passes. First one's July 12th, 3.5 magnitude at 541 out of the north-northeast, reaches its highest point at 546 at 60 degrees, and falls to the south, of course, at 551. July 15th also has a reasonably good pass, although this one's 4.0 magnitude, maybe a little more difficult to see from our perspective, but give it a shot anyway. 5:29 a.m. out of the north-northeast, reaches its highest point at 47 degrees at 5:34, and then falls at 5:39. Finally, July 17th, 3.1 magnitude, 5:54 a.m., reaches its highest point at 5:59 at 87 degrees, almost directly overhead, and then falls to the south-southwest at 6:04. And there you have it. Those are all the good passes. Again, go to heavensabove.com for additional information. Plug in your longitude and latitude, or you can become a user, log in, and then it will always remember your location. I'll now take any additional check-ins at this point, and if there's any questions, Q&A type questions, something you want to ask, and then also just do a recheck with your call. Final check-ins and any questions, please come now.
DCG.
KF5 DCG, that's John. John, where are you located?
Fort Worth, Texas.
All right, very good. I've got you checked in. Did you have any questions? I didn't ask you that. Do you have a question for tonight that we might answer?
No questions tonight. Enjoy the net though. KF5 DCG.
All right, well, very good. Thank you, John, for checking in. We appreciate it, and everyone who did check in. Tonight we had 30 people checking in, 30 hams participating. Thanks to all of you. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. As you may have noticed at the beginning, we got a bunch of them. If you'd like to try your hand at it, please contact any of the net controls you've heard this evening or on any evening by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can also follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to the club website, which is w5fc.org. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:28 local time. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy discovering the universe. Come back here in about 5 minutes, and we will start up our discussion for the Afterglow movie net called Salvage, or Salvage 1. Your choice, the pilot movie for the Andy Griffith science fiction series. Whoever thought that Andy Griffith would do a science fiction series, but he did. So come back here in about 5 minutes. I'll see you then. This is KE5I6, clear for now.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. This is KE5ICX. I'll be your net control this evening for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. This week's assignment was a television movie from 1979. In fact, it debuted on January 20th, 1979 to very high ratings, surprisingly. American Salvage 1 was an American science fiction series that was broadcast for 16 episodes of the 20 that were produced for ABC during 1979. So here's the pilot. Let me tell you that, and then I'll explain the rules of this net. Pilot centers around Harry Broderick, played by Andy Griffith, who owns the Jettison Scrap and Salvage Company and is specialist in reclaiming trash and junk to sell as scrap. His dream is to recover equipment left on the moon during the Apollo program missions. In the show's opening title narration, Harry states, "I want to build a spaceship, go to the moon, salvage all the junk that's up there, bring it back, and sell it to Barney." He invites the former astronaut Addison Skip Carmichael, what a name, played by Joel Higgins, and NASA fuel expert Melanie Mel Slozar, played by Trish Stewart, to assist him in this effort. During Slozar's fuel experiments, the Federal Bureau of Investigation becomes concerned over the purchases of chemicals. Broderick and his ragtag crew complete their mission and go on to further adventures in the subsequent series. The recurring subplot drives numerous attempts to find the appropriate explosive mixtures to break an iceberg from the Atlantic shelf to be transported to California coast as the source of fresh water. Robert Jekyll has a recurring role as Jack Klinger, the FBI agent tasked with keeping an eye on Broderick and his associates. Their relationship is generally rocky, but salvage crew fly to his rescue when he is captured during a mission to a Latin American dictatorship. So there's a mention of the Vulture. This is the spaceship made completely from reclaimed salvage and powered by chemical called monohydrazine. Now there is a monoethylhydrazine, which is an actual chemical fuel that was used to power the Ohms rockets on the space shuttle. This is not it. The main body of the Vulture is composed of a Texaco gasoline semi-trailer tank truck with a cement mixer as the capsule. This is augmented with 3 shorter rocket boosters placed 120 degrees around the main tank. Some other little side items, since the description is so short. Production had science fiction author Isaac Asimov as the show's scientific advisor. Really, I can't make that up. All you Isaac Asimov fans are sitting and tossing your books of Isaac Asimov in the trash right now, imagining how he did this. Money. Merchandise, Estes Rockets made a prototype of a model rocket version of the Vulture. It was never brought to market, probably because it was so blunt it would never fly. Who knows? Now, another thing that's interesting is there is a Facebook page for this and an enthusiastic group of people who actually continue to live out this television series daily, almost like Trekkies, but only a smaller, more crazy group. So there you have it. If you want to join the group, you can, and they have, I believe, some episodes available there in case salvage was not enough for you. All right, so here's the game. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins, and you will, let me tell you what the rules are first. The rules are that we'll go through and talk about the plot first, and we'll go down the list of those who've checked in, followed by the acting and character representations. That's the second round. Third round is usually the technical aspects of the movie in this case. How good were they? How good were the special effects? About the music, lighting, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, we had a very poor copy to watch. I don't know where this came off of, but I think it was running at super slow VHF speeds, and then the entire VHS tape was thrown in water and then run through the machine and switched over, migrated over to a digital format that was equally as terrible. In any case, it was washed out and difficult to watch, but you still saw it. I know you did. Okay, those are the things, and then if we have any additional time, anything else that anybody wants to say. Net runs about 90 minutes, and generally it always does, surprisingly. I don't know if this one's going to make it, though. We'll find out. So now I'll take check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and let me know, did you see Salvage 1? You don't necessarily have to have seen it, but we'll ask you questions about whether you want to see it. So here we go. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see Salvage, the pilot?
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. This is Tony in Dallas. I saw about half of it. NT5TM. Oh, wait, I already said that part. I'm sleepy.
Kilo 0 Foxtrot Echo Romeo, Chris in southeast Dallas. I saw about 40 minutes of it before I gave up on it, but yeah, K0FER.
Kilo India 5, November, Oscar November, Logan and Garland. I saw none of it. I'm just checking in to say I'm listening. KI5NON.
WB5OZL, Brendan DeSoto. I saw about 2/3 of it.
W5 BLT, W5 Bacon Lettuce Tomato Bill. I saw this movie.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Jay near Webber, if I can keep my foot on the foot pedal. I did not see the film.
November, Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia 5. I saw the whole thing.
Did not see but about maybe 40 minutes of it.
November, Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia. I saw the whole thing.
Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Hotel Juliet. I did not see the movie. I'm just going to enjoy the next.
Kilo India 5, Uniform Juliet. I did not see the movie, but I'm just here for the count.
Well, it's pretty healthy check-ins. Let me see here. I need a couple of fills, but let me see. I got NT5TM Tony. Yes, he saw part of the film. K0FER Chris. Yes, he saw about half of it. KI5NON. Logan Garland. No, he did not see it. Bad Garland. Bad Logan. Bad Logan. WB5OZL. Brenda DeSoto. She saw it until it blew up her computer. W5BLT, Bill, he's the only one that admits that he's seen the whole thing. KG5BZW, J near Weather, nope, he didn't see it, that's okay. NV5F, Virginia, yes, she saw it. Next, Cruz, could you give me your call sign? I'm sorry, I should know it, I just don't. And I think you said you saw it, but please let me know.
Sure, Tom, it's Kilo India 5 Kilo Whiskey Golf, and I'm in Arlington, and I saw, I think, about 40 minutes of it.
All right, seems everybody had the same problem with this film. I got also KG5AHJ did not see it, but checking in. KI5UUJ did not see it, but checking in. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate it when you do check in, even if you didn't see the film, just to let us know you're out there. We'll see if we can entice you with a better film next time. All right, well, let's see here. I'm going to go through all the yes people, starting at the top. So we'll just go down the list. NT5TM, Tony, you saw part of it. What did you think of the plot? Obviously, it didn't hold you transfixed like other films we've watched, but not recently. But go ahead. What are your comments?
Good evening, Tom, and thank you for being here. I found the plot partly amusing and partly annoying, and yeah, overall, not very engaging. I've been tired and busy. There was kind of a thing in science fiction for a while with kind of magic rocket fuels. Even Robert Heinlein talked about that. Ooh, we've discovered a special escape fuel that will help us get to the moon. And unfortunately, all these weird rocket fuel concepts fall apart when you know basic high school chemistry. Yes, there are very powerful explosives in the world, but really, measured in terms of mass, they're not as good as simple hydrogen and oxygen, or the scary combination of hydrogen and fluorine. They have other advantages, like you can, pick up a block of plastic explosives in a way you can't pick up a block of liquid oxygen. But kilo for kilo or pound for pound, humans use the rocket fuels we use for a very good reason. They're the most efficient we can do. Yes, using fluorine as an oxidizer would be slightly better than oxygen, but then you'd have to deal with the incredibly toxic, corrosive thing, fluorine, which makes things like glass burst into flames. So fluorine has not been very popular as an oxidizer in rocketry. So there is no magic rocket fuel, and I've known that since I was little because I read some of those science fiction books, but and sadly took chemistry. Likewise, I really loved and so amusing the idea of them just stealing computer time from someone else to make up for their lack of a guidance computer. It would never work. The speed of light delay would doom them, and never mind getting all these different unrelated computer systems to talk to one another. That's kind of a curse of the devil. Even nowadays, that's kind of how I make my living, is by getting unrelated computers to talk to each other. It's still hard. So that was impossible. But I did find it really funny. It was like War Games before War Games was a thing. Ooh, we'll just plug a little modem cable in here. So it was implausible in parts. That's always a problem in science fiction. And amusing with their borrowing computer time. The A-Team did the American Ingenuity thing better, but I kind of appreciated that. That was kind of a, just a fun thing. Hey, let's staple this to that and make it work somehow. But somehow, nevertheless, the plot was just, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't suspenseful enough. Maybe it wasn't interesting enough. I just didn't feel motivated to see it through. So it had some lows and some highs, and mainly some snooze. NT5TM.
Okay, Tony. Well, that's better than I was expecting. So we'll see what happens when we get to characterization. You bash those. Next up is Chris, K0FER. Chris, you got about halfway through it. What did you think? What made you turn it off? Why did you fall asleep? Did you change the channel? Was there a power failure? Did you have friends come over? What happened? And what did you think of what you did see from KE5ICX?
Well, what I thought is it was a kind of campy, absurd thing, but the main reason why I kind of abandoned it is I thought, man, Matt Locke is just not keeping it together for this. I am coming to realize that Andy Griffith plays the exact same character in everything he ever was in. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for a show or for anything science fiction, but the idea that a drop of this could blow up a 500-pound engine block 3 meters in the air and still be at all considered safe, or that they were going to use this to increase the flight potential of a cement truck. Yeah, I was just like, okay, guys, you're just going too far on this. So that's kind of why I turned it off. KZRFER, back to net.
All right, thank you, Chris, and I'm sure you will not be alone on those comments, myself included. Let's see, next was, Logan's there. I'm going to hold off on Logan because we got to get everybody's opinion in who did see most of the film, and then see what people, whether they would want to go and see it, or any of the dozen-plus episodes. Okay, next is WB5OZL, Brenda. Brenda, go ahead with your comments.
This is WB5OZL. My computer kind of coughed up a hairball, and then I had trouble getting it back. I had to change browsers. So I missed a good section of it, but I have a pretty good feeling I didn't miss much. Now, I will say that when this series was on TV, I watched every episode, and I loved it. But maybe I was young and stupid. I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad at the time. Of course, now it's just almost unwatchable. It's just still fun. You just have to suspend belief to think that they're going to build their own spaceship. First of all, the bureaucratic problems will be insurmountable. The government is not going to let them do this. And then when they get up there, they're going to steal all this stuff from the U.S. government. I don't know what salvage laws are like in space, but I'm just not so sure you can just go and commandeer something that belongs to the government. I don't know what the time limit is on whether something is technically abandoned and you can salvage it, but they thought they could. But still, how are you going to get a lunar rover into that spaceship? You'll have to take it apart, or pieces may be pretty permanently attached to each other. I don't know how they're going to do that. And what's it worth in salvage value anyway? It's worth, they probably spent millions developing and building this thing. It's just a piece of junk now. What good would it ever be to anybody other than as an artifact? And I'm just really offended at the idea that it would be a priceless artifact and should be in a museum, but they're going to junk it. I just didn't part. And Andy Griffith, he always plays the same guy, which is okay. It's not. He just doesn't strike me as an astronaut. And him flying the aerobatic plane was a little unbelievable as well. All right, back to net. WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. I wrote down some notes to negate your comments later on, but I'm glad that you saw every single show that was offered to you. I've always wondered what was wrong with you. Now I know you watched the entire series of Salvage 1, but that's okay. We'll come back to you in a little bit. Next up, W5BLT, Bill. Bill, tell us, what did you think? Why did you like it? Well, wait, I don't know if you liked it or not. How come you watched the whole thing from KE5ICS?
Oh well, Tom, you must know me too well. The video didn't bother me as a blind guy. I thought it was okay. I did like this movie, and that's pretty scary that you called me out. I might get suspended here for 2 weeks from the net. Let me break for a second. I remember watching this as a 10-year-old kid, and so I watched it again through that, even though I'm 52 now. This was something that got me dreaming of space, and an average person could do that. And of course, now we have private industry going up into space, so that's pretty cool. So I watched it through the eyes of a 10-year-old again, and maybe because I haven't grown up. The plot is silly, but it was interesting to me that Harry, gave up his ride on the so-called ship, and the other two characters went up in that. Hard to believe that they could actually fly and make it back. So you really had to suspend a lot of what you know about reality. But as a 10-year-old, you don't know a lot about reality anyway. But this got me dreaming of space, and that Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars really led me to read analog science fiction and fact as a kid, and sparked my love for space. So if there's one good thing that came out of this movie, that's it. W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. Those are very good comments. I like that. Next up is Virginia, NBF Virginia. Why did you watch the whole film? I think you said you did. What did you think of the plot from KE5ICX?
KE5ICX in the net. This is Virginia NV5F. Well, I watched the whole thing because I had gotten home from a long day of being out, and I came in the house and started doing things, and then realized I was tired and needed a reason to sit still for a long time, and I realized it was Saturday afterglow night, and I looked up our selection and clicked on it and just started watching, and thought, I'll just get comfortable here and watch this whole thing. And I agree with you, the quality, it looks like it was compressed with the lowest possible, like, probably the earliest like MPEG compression in the late 90s, and the system that compressed it also looked like it cropped the edges all the way around the frame. It was people's heads were cut off, the ends of credits were cut off. It was terrible. So BLT there, you're lucky you didn't get to see that. Anyway, I'm visually impaired, and I could see just fine how terrible it was. Anyway, I don't remember seeing this when I was a kid. I was very young when it came out, but I can imagine that if I had seen it and the series that came after it, I probably would have really liked it. I found it likable because it was just great, like cheesy 70s, like Knight Rider or the A-Team, or just stuff that's so implausible, that it's just really fun to watch, because, I like to see the imagination of the people who create this stuff, and it is kind of a long tradition of things, that some before and some after, of people who weren't NASA government people going, hey, let's build a rocket and go to space. That's kind of been a recurring plot line. What if some guy just decided he wanted to go to space? So I liked that aspect of it, and Andy Griffith is always the same guy, but he's likable, and it was over the top, just crazy, but it started out with him having this love of salvaging aircraft and selling them, not as scrap necessarily, but actually as artifacts or models that people could restore. So there was that aspect of it. I do find it hilarious that Isaac Asimov was the science consultant. Now, if Arthur C. Clarke had joined him, that would have been, hilarious, pretty much squared. But anyway, it was silly, the whole concept of the fuel and the acceleration from the beginning to the end of the trip. It's like, well, if you're accelerating the whole time, you have to spend a lot of fuel accelerating the whole time. the same amount that you would spend to coast there, but then you'd have to spend, you know, I just think I know enough physics to know that that's all just nuts, but anyway, my most implausible thing in the movie, I think, was probably that they realized once they got on the moon that they had 3 hours before they had to turn around and come back, and somehow they got all those big lunar landers and junk into that Texaco oil tanker, all loaded in there like in less than 3 hours, and had time to like jump around and act excited that they were on the moon. So anyway, pretty hilarious, silly love story, super goofy, super campy, very 70s, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. You know, I think I would have liked the series too, and I love anything space. So yeah, ridiculous, but I didn't completely hate it. I just really kind of enjoyed watching something that was easy to watch. Okay, back to net. This is in V5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. And, you know, I think you were a little easier on it than a few others, and I didn't mind it either. I'll save my comments for the end. Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, I'm always interested in your comments. What did you think? Did you see the whole thing, number one? And what did you think of it, at least the plot, from KE5ICX?
KI5KWG. Yeah, I went back and looked while y'all were talking, and I thought it was about 40 minutes that I saw of it. It turns out I went back to my YouTube. It was 26 minutes and so many seconds when I said, that's enough. But that's not necessarily the film or the writing or the acting. It was just my mood. I was kind of surprised because I had never heard of this. I was 19 when it came out, but I was like, 5 when I became really fascinated with manned space flight. Pretty much devoured everything on it that I could. And boy, Tony, you had my ears perked with your rocket fuel expertise. I was like, oh, this is fascinating. Anyway, so I'd never seen it. And I started watching it, and I just simply wasn't in the mood for it. And but I had a couple of comments, and I'm probably not going to have anything else. One, I almost agree that Andy Griffith plays the same character in everything he's ever done. But if you've not heard of this, and not many have, I have a gem for you. It is his best post-Mayberry work. It's Rustler's Rhapsody. It's a comedy, and it is wonderful, and he plays a very, very different character. And I'll just leave it at that. If you want to watch it, Rustler's Rhapsody. I think it was Chris that mentioned the suspension of disbelief, and in sci-fi, that's kind of always an issue. And, like I said, I'm not sure I really want to fault the film, but at the time I sat down to try to watch it. You have to want to suspend that disbelief, and I simply didn't. That's why I didn't go back to it. So I think that's all I've got on this. It sounds like something. I was 19 when it came out, so I was pretty busy. That's probably why I was never on my radio. I was in college, and had a girlfriend, etc. So, but I think if this had come out 10 years earlier, it probably would have been on my radar. I probably would have been a fan. So I'm going to kick it back to Nep. And Tom, this is KI5KWG, and I'm clear.
All right, thank you, Cruz. And we'll still probably come back to you in a little bit. I've had a few comments, but before I make comments, let me see if there are any additional check-ins. Anyone who'd like to join us this evening? Tonight's movie that we're talking about is Salvage 1 from 1979 with Andy Griffith. So anybody else like to join us, please come now with your call sign name. Did you see the film? Please come down.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen the movie.
All right, very good. Sean, KB9SOK. We are at round one, of course, as you probably figured that out. What did you think about the plot to Salvage or Salvage 1, whatever you would like to talk about? Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, I agree with pretty much what everybody said. It was, obviously pretty rough to watch, which isn't the show's fault, just an old copy. Like everybody else, I don't remember seeing this as a kid, which I'm surprised, because this seems like something I would have watched, or I did watch it, and it was just didn't capture the imagination for some reason. I can't believe this actually went on for 2 seasons, though. I'm not sure exactly how do you top, salvaging the moon. But yeah, no, you definitely got to disbelieve any kind of science of any kind, because the thing was almost borderline comical. It was just, totally ridiculous. But once again, I guess you got to remember, the time it came out, it was also a TV show. The whole thing was just crazy. Like somebody said, you can't use a cement mixer in your capsule, and a car shifter lever as your throttle control, which you always push to the max. So yeah, there were parts of it that were almost comical, and it was definitely I can't say that I didn't hate it, but it was just kind of ridiculous. I'd be curious to see if the rest of the episodes were that crazy. But I'm kind of wondering if maybe the person, which I don't know, I think it was called the farmer astronaut, kind of where the farmer wanted to go into space. I don't know if maybe that person that wrote that had seen this and that inspired them to do something later along those lines, but it really don't have a whole lot to say other than it was just interesting, and almost I just kind of took it as just something from the 70s, and like I said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't exactly love it either, but it was interesting. Back to net, KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Thanks for those comments. Yeah, I know we're probably going to have it, probably going to end early tonight because it's a bit weak, but all right, I'm going to make my comments, and then I'll go and quiz some of the folks that I did not call on because even though they did not see it on this next round. Let's see here. First off, I avoided this movie and subsequent series like the plague. I've never been a huge fan of Andy Griffith in other things. Obviously, Andy Griffith's show was fine, and it had a lot of really colorful characters and made it a lot of fun. The stories were fun, and I could stand it because Andy played Andy, and he played the role straight. When I've seen him in Matlock, I can't stand Matlock. I'm sorry, it's just not my program. I can't even sit through the opening credits. That's just lame. When he was in RFD briefly, that was boring because the characters weren't as interesting and all that. I saw him in No Time for Sergeants. That was okay. I've seen him in other roles playing Andy Griffith, and just not really a sympathetic character for me, not somebody I'd want to watch. He's not funny per se. He's just Andy, kind of like the boring guy down the street who talks too long. You just want to turn him off. I don't know. That's me, so I never watched it. So watching this for the first time, having avoided it for so many years, I actually thought it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too good, but it wasn't too bad. Now, a couple of things, and Virginia brought up a good point. I had a little note with Brenda. We were over here chatting a little bit. She said the same thing. She brought up a really good point that there's chock full of totally improbable but fun television shows, and that's what Explorers for you to be entertained and buy some products along the way. And that's essentially what it was. And it was not as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. It was kind of entertaining. The characters were sort of interesting in what they were trying to do. None of it made any sense, really. The fuel thing, the fuel thing was kind of ridiculous. If it's got to have enough bang for the buck, it's got to be dangerous. This stuff is barely dangerous, although they said it's dangerous, but it's really not. And you can dial it up and dial it down. I mean, don't, when you do these things and you figure out what kind, the fuel ratios and all that, they spend years figuring it all out. Here they figured it out in like 5 minutes. Also, anybody, and I'm sure Tony could express some opinions about this, nobody's wearing any safety glasses. Nobody's hiding behind any sort of bunkers. Nobody's doing all the safety things you would want to do when you're testing out a rocket fuel for the first time. You're figuring it's going to be pretty powerful, and since it's so much more powerful than everything else ever made, eye protection would be kind of a nice thing. Maybe limb protection would be nice, but they're all standing outside and eye dropping this stuff in and testing it. And you could even, the engines were throttleable. All you had to do, you put a little bit in and put it in this little tube to test it, and it goes up slowly. And I know it's supposed to be slow release and all that good stuff, but I mean, at some point you've got to overcome gravity and get out of orbit. I don't know. I guess that's part of the story. Go super slow and you won't have to worry about it at all. All I could think of is that as the rocket is slowly taking off, eventually, it doubles its speed at some point, but I don't think it ever gets to that point before it, burns up in Russia or something, before it ever gets to orbit. So I had a lot of trouble with that. Now, some of the things I did not have trouble with. The idea that you could build something out of old materials. Now, the things that they had were pretty stupid, yes, but we've got several private space programs going on right now. They get a little help from NASA, but have built things out of materials that they had. When you look at SpaceX and the Starship, that thing is being built out of what? It was made out of aluminum. Some of the originals. I mean, some of this stuff is done by regular workers. They're not scientists. They're people that go and build stuff. So maybe not 1979, but today there's a lot of that going on. People building stuff and reaching orbit with it. So yes, we've got the computers and all that good stuff to make it work, not like dialing up and using computer time, which made no sense, but today you could. We've got fast enough to be able to do, the computers are fast enough and small enough, you can put them on board and make things happen. So, in fact, when you look at SpaceX and being able to land a first stage, I mean, NASA would never have considered that, and none of the contractors for NASA would have considered that as a basic operational capability. That had to be done by the founder of the company in order to make that happen, and then others followed along. So absurd it was until it was possible, and then it became less absurd. Now, Brenda mentioned something about bringing back one of the rovers. Okay, don't forget, the rover fit inside of a small bay inside of a lunar module that barely had enough, it was generally overweight to begin with. So this thing fits into the size of a large suitcase or a steamer trunk. That's it, man. And when it popped out, it all sprung out in a zillion different directions. Now imagine if you could take and repackage it up. You could get it back into its steamer trunk thing and put it on board your little cement mixer spaceship. So why not? A lot of the stuff is like that. The lunar module is not gigantic by any stretch of the imagination. It's got all that equipment on board. It expands, yes. They assemble it. They make it bigger. Everything pops out with springs and works. And you got 1/6 gravity, so you don't have to make it particularly super heavy duty just so that it will hold up on the lunar surface. So I didn't have as much of a problem with that as maybe others did. Now, the being able to sell it and all that, I don't know. Is that possible? I think that salvage is on the high seas is still possible. Once it's abandoned, it's yours if you can bring it up and take it home. Although I think that there's been some discussions about that, especially with stuff that's on board that was stolen in the first place. It belongs to some country somewhere, or like the Blooms or something. Potentially, I think there's something there, but I think the salvage rules are still the same in space or in the water, and is essentially if you find it, it's yours. And in fact, if I recall, they recovered a bunch of F-1 engines from actually Apollo 11 and Apollo 12. Those F-1 engines, so they're worthless, have been brought up, and I don't think NASA has claimed them. Also, there is the Liberty Bell 7 spacecraft that was lost after Gus Grissom got out and then it started to sink. That was brought up, and it is privately owned over at Cosmosphere up in Hutchinson, Kansas, so that does not belong to NASA. That belongs to Hutchinson, Kansas, and the and the Cosmosphere group up there. So there is another example with actual hardware that was lost and recovered by private industry. Now about suspending disbelief, and back to that comment, and it's the last thing I got here. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the idea of this thing launching and landing and all that is absurd, but I don't know. Stanley Kubrick, Isaac Asimov thought enough to go ahead and do it, though I think sometimes he just decided to join up on stuff just because he could and do something interesting rather than sitting around in his New York apartment watching the rent go up or something. But I don't know. It does provide an anchor for people that are interested in that sort of thing. Certainly we don't have a Starship that can go faster than the speed of light. We don't really know for sure we can even do that, and at the time the show was produced, Star Trek, it was impossible. But that doesn't make for good storytelling, does it? You can't do that. You had to suspend disbelief in something like that with the cardboard sets and things falling down and all of that, or the Captain Kirk and jiu-jitsu and all of that. But we still love that show. We still love that show, even though it was it was done with virtually nothing, and it sparked the imaginations of generations of scientists and engineers, and even some of the wooden props and things that were used in the thing actually became things like cell phones and iPads and actual devices. It had enough of an inspiration to go forward to make it worthwhile. So maybe it's not a bad idea. Maybe somebody would look at something like this and say, I can take this and that and build it into this thing over here. What class I took in college was involved something like that. Creative. Hang on a second. I'm trying to remember the name of the class, but essentially what it was one of my last senior classes, but it had to do with creative industry, being able to take ideas that were developed in one area of industry and applying it someplace else. Take something and be able to use that experience in another technology. Such an example would be like a digital transmission with information that appears on a screen. I actually talked to the guy who created that. The stuff that you get on your radio now is just a normal thing. He wanted it for emergency broadcast adequate broadcast of that, which eventually did happen, and he made a lot of money doing it, by the way. But it also is an everyday thing that we use on virtually every kind of transmission, television and audio programming and everything else. Just a simple idea that was used as a way of quickly getting information out is now an essential part of what we do with broadcast and transmission, and even with our own stuff, a similar idea, ham radio. So I don't have a problem with it so much. And I think that this show is kind of that kind of inspiration. Now, did it have the kind of following of Star Trek? No. Does the Facebook page have thousands and thousands of people like Star Trek? No, the Facebook page has 9 people. But if they ever put the series out, say on Blu-ray, which they may do someday, or on DVD or streaming, heck, there's so many channels for available for terrestrial and also for streaming, maybe somebody will do it, and suddenly will bring back its fans, and maybe it'll inspire another generation, or re-inspire the first generation. I don't know. I didn't think it was as bad as I thought it would be, but and I can see its relevance to a certain extent. But still, I have problems with Andy Griffith in this. But he was quite the guy. But we'll talk about that in a minute. All right. Well, I've talked that one to death, and probably everybody has gone to bed. I will go through the list, including those who did not see it, see if they're still there and if they have any comments. So we'll start at the top. We're going to discuss characterization. So, Tony, if he's still awake, NT5TM. Tony, you want to talk about characterization, specifically Harry Broderick and Jettison Scrap and Salvage Company from KE5ICF.
Hey, Tom. I am still awake, although not for much longer. You do know me. I'm kind of struggling here. It was kind of funny to me because this is a little bit of a digression. We saw a movie, I think it was a version of Robert Heinlein's Destination Moon years ago, that inadvertently predicted the future, because after the rocket ship landed on the moon, they had to throw all kinds of stuff out: batteries, radios, old backpacks, clothes, maps, textbooks, phone booths, all this extra stuff they brought along. And the Apollo astronauts really did have to do that. They were, pushing their backpacks and all sorts of surplus waste and old flight manuals out the airlock because the weight margin was just that tight in the lunar module ascent stage. Likewise, this movie sure did predict the future in one important way. That we both really talked about and got into there for a minute. Just how terrible dial-up was, and how no one, this doesn't work, and phone company doesn't care, and they won't help you, and the calls randomly drop, and you can't get through, and dial-up modems were absolutely horrible, horrible things, and this movie did depict that, even with the little alarm going off when it didn't work. So we liked that touch. The characters for me were probably less interesting than to other people. I noticed a lot of people have been talking about how Andy Griffith always played himself. I never paid enough attention to him to even notice what that self was. Fortunately, I have never seen an episode of Matlock. I've been far too scared to ever try. So the characters all seemed like little amusing caricatures to me, but part of what contributed to the snooze factor on this show was that just none of them seemed particularly interesting or unique. They were just, one of those. So I wish I had more to say about the characters, and I wish dial-up modems had been less horrible, but we have to deal with the trauma we're given, not the trauma we wish we had. Have a great night. I'm checking out NT5TM.
Okie dokie, Tony, I got you checked out. Oh, by the way, before you go, yes, they used to throw all that stuff out onto the moon. And the PLSS, the Portable Life Support Systems, those backpacks, you go, how'd they do that? The backpacks, the depressurized. Well, if you look at the A7L suits, which, by the way, you'll get a chance to see one at Moon Day, the A7L suit, there are two sets of valves. There's one on the left and one on the right. And if you were a lunar explorer, not the command module pilot, the lunar explorer, the two guys that actually went to the moon, they had two sets, one on the left and one on the right. If you're the command module pilot, you only had one set. It was on the left. And essentially what that is that you would just plug into the systems on board your spacecraft and fly around, and everything was fine. When you went to the moon, you had to depressurize, so you had to have the PLSS suit set up, and you go ahead and plug everything in, and you unplug from the spacecraft's oxygen supply, and you could walk on the moon. When you were done, you didn't need that heavy PLSS pack anymore, so you plugged into the spacecraft system on the one side, and you got rid of the PLSS and unplugged it out of the other set on the other side, and then you tossed it out onto the moon. Just a little note. And whenever you see the movies where you see them going out to the pad, the two guys walking on the moon had slightly different suits than the guy who was going to stay inside the command module. All right, next up is Chris, K0FER. Chris, what did you think about characterizations in this movie, Salvage or Salvage 1, from KE5ICX?
Well, I'll take your criticism in stride about I think you're correct about willing to suspend my disbelief. I think I need to be a little bit more gracious there. But as far as characterization goes, I know we've talked about Andy Griffith playing kind of the same character, but from the get-go, when they were trying to recruit Mel, forget her last name, and she's on that Hollywood set, and there's that actor who's kind of being harassing, and doing so to the person who's about to put a bunch of explosives under his butt, since she was the explosive expert. Thought, this guy's not too smart, and then he deserved what he got. And then, like immediately after, what's his name? The guy that he played the dad in Silver Spoons. Anyway, he's recruiting Mel, and then starts doing the exact same thing. I thought, this can only end in tears. Just like, man, this guy's not too bright. And then, like you said, the lack of safety equipment is like, okay, but you're right. I need to have a little more grace for a show that clearly wasn't intended to be taking itself seriously. Other than that, I mean, it was just a show. I've definitely seen worse. So, yeah, it's got a 7 on IMDb, if that matters to anyone. Anyway, K0FER, back to net.
All right, thank you, Chris. Yeah, I can feel you just, trying to grab something of substance, and it's just like slipping through your fingers like star systems, as I think it was Darth Vader once said. At any rate, okay. Well, we'll come back with special effects here in a little bit. Next up, Logan, if you're there, KI5NON. Logan, I saved you around, but now, do you want to see this film or the series? Do you want to rush out and get it on, I don't know, streaming? I bet you Tubi might have it. What do you think from KE5ICX? Oh, man, he bugged out. I thought he might. All right, next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think of the characterization on this film? I know you adored it.
This is WB5OZL. I thought it was pretty formulaic and predictable. Andy Griffith played Andy Griffith, and you've got the the young people who are talented and beautiful, and you've got the authority figures that come around and create a problem for our heroes. But, you know, there's one reason why things are formulaic is because formulas work. And so I can't really fault them too much for that. Yeah, most of the people, other than Andy Griffith, I didn't really know any of the other people in there. They did an okay job. They're, you know, all just standard actors. I guess they were okay. There wasn't any real wonderful, nothing out of the ordinary or real showstoppers here. Really, I don't have a whole lot more to say about it than this. There have been a lot of good comments tonight, however, so that's good. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Wow. Okay, that was very short-lived, but that's okay. Let me put that round. Next up, Bill. W5BLT. Bill, you're the authority on this film now. Tell us, what you think of characterization?
I don't know if that's a badge of honor or not. Well, you know, it was a standard formula, and if you like Andy Griffith, you probably liked his character, I think that you know, it's kind of predictable with the two going up in the space capsule, and you know, it had those characters again, and hopefully that's not coming over the radio. I have a cat. Anyway, it's very predictable, and it's just one of those, you know, suspend belief, watch it. I was disappointed that the video was bad, because I was going to try to subject my family to it, that they could only get about 30 seconds in because of the video. However, again, I remember my dad would bring me into anything space, and so I don't know that I had a necessarily problem with characterization, but yes, you had to really suspend and just go with it. We've seen worse characters, and movies, and this net is so talented that we can take a really bad movie and run it to about midnight. W5BLT, back to net control.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by that fact, too. But I think it's because we can compare against other films and other situations. And of course, we always apply a fair dose of our own childhood, especially with the older films. Okay, next. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know, the series is available on Crackle. Looks like the entire series. And unfortunately, the movie is not, but at least the rest of the series is watchable. At least the picture quality is watchable, much better than the movie. But in any case, it is there. I'm looking at episode 12, which is showing little bits and pieces from the original movie that they used for the thing. So yes, yeah, it's amazing. Wait a minute. Yeah, that's just the opening. Okay. Let me see here. Next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, when you watch this film with Andy Griffith and Joel Higgins and Tricia Stewart as Mel and Richard Jekyll as Klinger, tell us, would you watch this film?
Evening, everybody on the net. This is KG5BZW. Well, yeah, I'd probably give it a shot. It doesn't sound horrible. I actually would have given it a shot. I just got really busy toward the end of the week, and it just so happens I just did not have time. The time I did have today, I needed a nap because I was in the heat from Parker County Beach pedal, volunteering at the SAG, well, rest stop at SAG and all that. But anyway, beside the point here. I don't know that there's much I can really say about the characters and whatnot that have said that, piqued my interest. The one thing I do remember, like Tony said at the beginning of the net about stealing CPU time for running the ship. Well, I'm sure the show had them stealing the CPU time at runtime, which probably would not have worked. It just wouldn't, for the same reason he said. But never underestimate the utility of pre-computed tables. I mean, heck, I'm always afraid that some of these websites I've visited, that sometimes there's some worker JavaScript, whatever. The tab is using CPU for some reason, and there are ways to do JavaScript where you can have like worker, I don't know the name of it. It's a really weird kind of concept because normally JavaScript scripts and single thread and can't really do multiple things. There's a lot of tricks, and I'm always wondering about, dude, are they using my computer? Somebody using my computer to, I don't know, mine crypto or whatever. Because I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly some web pages are doing, and I know there's been some fixes to make some things like that harder. CPU, using somebody else's CPU seems like it could be very useful for space travel in some circumstances. If the tables could be made small enough for some specific tasks. There's some awfully complicated things that can be reduced to, you only have to compute 100 things. The math takes an hour to compute each thing, but if you can do those 100 hours, you're set for life, But anyway, that's all I've got to say on that. And I'll hand it back to the control. This is KG5EZ.
All right, thank you, Jay. And I'll just interject a quick comment, is that if you remember the early Mercury missions, they didn't have any really telemetry per se. A lot of the work that was being done, the telemetry was downloaded from the various centers that were throughout the world, and they were sent by telex. That information, they weren't connected at the time. The only thing that was connected was telex machines. So literally they would type in all of the data that they could as quickly as they could and send it back to mission control. True story. All right, next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, what did you think of characterization for Salvage 1 from 1979?
Okay, well, I feel like I have a little more to say than most. I'll try to keep it brief. I think it's easy to just go, Andy Griffith is in something, he's just playing himself, instead of thinking, well, what were they trying to convey? Like, what was the character what were they trying to, get across with this character? And I think Andy Griffith made an effort, and I think the whole point of the character was that he was kind of a larger-than-life, almost swaggering guy. It shows him at the beginning doing aerobatics, and then he lands, and he turns out he's this you know, not like a captain of industry, but you know, maybe a big fish in a small pond with his salvage operations and finding all these old aircraft and you know, reselling them. And it shows him, you know, with his car phone and his stripy jogging suit, you know, and jogging alongside someone who's driving in the car next to him. And I think they at least try to portray him as like this go-getter sort of mogul type local business guy, successful guy in the community who can make things happen. And then of course you've got to have the young pretty couple, and he has to relinquish his seat on the mission so that they can be together and you know, keep falling in love, so you can have a little bit of that. And then you've got a little bit of conflict with the woman, his love interest. I you know, I was kind of in and out attention-wise. I think she was like his, you know, ex, and they kind of get back together over the whole thing because she has to help him, and there wasn't a whole lot of conflict in this movie overall. I didn't feel a lot of tension, even between him and the local authorities or even the government authorities. It seems like he's like, hey, NASA, we need your computers. Okay, sure, let's, you know. So it seems like there was a few little things like, you know, the rocket sprung a leak or, you know, there were some technical difficulties. But it you know, so plot-wise, there wasn't a lot of real huge tension or conflict, really, and there wasn't a whole lot of that among the characters either. But I think there was at least an attempt, you know, to go, oh yeah, we used to work together, and you know, I was an astronaut, and you were a fuel expert, and now we're thrown back together. And but standard 70s acting and actors and dialogue and the level of acting was about that, you know, that typical 70s TV level. That for us, people weren't that critical of TV back then. It was, you had TV, and then you had the movies, and they were two completely different worlds. And even the movies back then, character and exposition and all that stuff was a lot easier to kind of deal with. Now I have to see a movie. These movies they make now, they're really long, and you have to see a movie 4 times to figure out what's going on. So, you know, there's something refreshing about the simplicity here. But I think the Andy Griffith character, they try to give him some dimension, and I gotta hand him a little bit for that. So maybe it's because I'm tired. I'm just being too nice tonight. Anyway, those are my comments on characters. Back to Ned in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia, and that's perfectly fine. I agree with you on all counts. Let's see. Next up, Cruz, KI5KWG. What'd you think of characterizations for as long as you could stay with it from KE5ICX?
KI5KWG. Actually, don't really have anything on that. Tom, you had mentioned the rover and bringing things back, and that jogged a memory, and I can't quite complete it, wondering if you or anybody else on the net might know. But at that time, that would have been about 1971, I think, some famous person tried to offer to buy a rover from NASA if NASA would agree to bring it back. And I've been searching the net since thinking of that and not coming up with anything. It seems to me it was a famous person from Texas, so I guess from that era I'm thinking of H.L. Hunt. But that's just kind of a wild guess or maybe a hunch. Does anybody remember that? Of course, the answer was no, absolutely not. It was just not feasible, not only for no amount of money was it feasible. But anyway, that's all the only thoughts I had that I wanted to share. This is KI5KWG, back to net.
All right, thank you, Cruz. I don't remember it, no. It wouldn't surprise me. Anybody who, you know, somebody would do that, especially if they got lots of money. They garner up a little bit of business along the way. By the way, just as a comment, I have being as, of course, I don't have that access like I used to, but going to the museum, I had access to the archives at the museum, which was pretty cool. And they had the mission profile for Apollo 15, which is one of the J missions. She was actually launched with a rover on board. And I read through the actual deployment instructions for the lunar rover. And the two astronauts were there. One was there holding a lanyard, and he would pull on this lanyard, and the thing would open up. Now, in true NASA way, there's a danger zone to step away from, and the lanyard helped to provide the distance so that, you know, if you're at the end of the lanyard, then you're far enough away. They show the entire, like, 60 degrees of area to stay away from as they undo this thing. And, of course, inside of that, there's a million instructions. What happens when this doesn't work? What if this wheel doesn't open up or that? And there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I believe that stuff is actually available online. It's all been scanned in, and you can find it at the NASA archives. And Cruz, knowing you the way I think I know you, you'll go looking for that stuff. It is there. Every mission profile, every mission information, step by step, are there for the missions, which is pretty cool. By the way, that was a pretty thick binder, about 1,000 pages at least. It's tiny print. Okay, let me see. KG5AHJ. I didn't get a name, but if you're out there, come on back and tell us. Tell us who you are? And we know you didn't see the film, but would you go and watch it now after all this fine publicity from KE5ICX? All right, he's gone, but that's okay. KI5UUJ, are you out there? All right, they're dropping like flies. Well, it is almost midnight. KV9SOK, Sean. Sean, what did you think of characterization for Salvage 1?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, I agree with what's been said. They were pretty, your typical characters that you've seen from the 70s and 80s TV shows. As you know, networks always seem to have, that formula that has to be followed. There has to be some kind of love interest. We've got, in these type of movies, you've always got, of course, the captain, which would be Andy Griffith, and then you got the scientist, and then, then you've got, the rogue person that's willing to risk anything, and then, of course, his love interest. So, yeah, we've seen this formula many times. I think they played it like most of the shows in that time period, so I guess I really can't knock it. Myself, I'm also not a fan of Andy Griffith. I never was a fan of Matlock. But now my parents, they loved him. So they watched him everything he was in. But yeah, I never did really care for him. I thought he did okay in this. I didn't really have a problem with it. But yeah, the premise show was silly, but I was okay with that. I will give the network credit for trying something different. Obviously our major networks have always been very scared because they spend so much money to try anything outside a certain box. And a lot of times when you do, many years down the road, you hear from the writers and the producers of older shows, and they say, well, yeah, they give them notes all the time. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to add this, and they don't get the opportunity too often to do something truly unique. Luckily, it's probably a miracle that, of course, everybody knows the whole story with how Star Trek, the original one, got released, and how that was, So it's it is kind of a challenge to get those unique shows out there. So I will give them credit for trying something different. I think as time's gone on, our major networks have gotten worse about that. It's very cookie cutter these days. 50 million CSIs. You get your hospital shows and your fire shows, and they don't really like to explore outside a certain range of stuff. So I kind of miss it. Sometimes they take a chance on this stuff. Now we got to venture out to the quote-unquote oddball channels to find unique programming. So I'll give them credit for that. Now, what was kind of funny is as I was watching the end of this movie, the credits started to roll. They actually had, you can tell this was a true VHS straight off the original air that was copied, because you could actually hear the advertisements. You could hear them advertising Battlestar Galactica during the credits was coming up. So I thought that was a fun little tidbit of the time period, which was definitely a better show. So, yeah, not a lot to add. Like I said, it not my favorite, but it wasn't horrible either. I don't think I'll go back and watch the other shows on Crackle, but it's always fun to kind of look at something different. Now, I know this might be something a little bit outside the box, but I know a few weeks back we watched Star Trek New Worlds. Now that the series is complete, I'd be curious maybe in the future, maybe we do one on the whole series. I'd be curious to see what other people thought of it, the whole thing. But anyway, that's all I got. Back to net, KB9SOK.
Very good, thank you, Sean. I'm actually running in the background over here without audio. The episode where I guess they're going for the iceberg, which became kind of an ongoing thing through the series, that they were going to go and get an iceberg and bring it to California so they would have fresh water. And watching it, there's a quick line in there or something that says they're launching the spacecraft again, and there's a couple of husband and wife. They're sitting in this walk-up brownstone somewhere, and they're watching television. They can hear the rocket, and everything's vibrating and everything. And I said, you know what? It's happening now. Boca Chica Beach. It's like those poor people that live just down the road. They have the same thing going on. They're testing the rocket again, and it's pretty much the same darn thing if you think about it. So I don't know. Maybe it's not so crazy far-fetched as maybe we think. Some of the practical things that we think is a joke is actually more real than we ever imagined. Characterization, they're gonna cast to type. I remember on Star Trek, I can't think of the guy's name, but if you remember the gangster episode where they had Jojo Krakow and Bella Oxmix, the guy who played Bella Oxmix, who was the gangster guy in that. Well, he played Al Capone and very successfully in The Untouchables. Same role, same thing, doing the same stuff. So yeah, they're going to cast people to type. That just happens, and there are many actors who have had very successful careers doing that sort of thing. So I guess we expect Andy Griffith to play kind of that country bumpkin, nice guy sort of role. We expect that. And there are other characters that are very much, and other actors that do the same thing. Well, heck, we watch Tom Cruise. He plays Tom Cruise in everything he does, too. Same role. So why not? And some people get paid very handsomely to do that. A lot of them do not, but some of them do. Okay, let me see. Well, we're reaching, it's 11:53, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up. If you've got any final comments or anything, you want to talk about special effects or anything like that, or music, or something you forgot in the first two rounds, now is your opportunity. So please come with your call sign, and I'll go down the list. Let's go.
November 5 Sierra, Quebec Alpha.
WE50ZL. NV5S.
Okay, very good. Ron's back from his showbiz world. N5SQA, Ron, welcome to the net. What do you got for us this evening?
As usual, Tom, just wanted to check in and say hello. Yes, I did 2 shows today. Final show tomorrow at 2:30. Then I can get back into my regular ham radio world. At any rate, thank you for including me on your list, and back to net. N5SQA.
Very very good. Thank you, Ron. Thanks for checking in, and congratulations on. I'm sure you did excellent on the play. We'll ask you specific questions next week if we can catch you. WB50ZL, Miss Brent, with your comments.
This is WB50ZL. Oh, I just have a couple of comments. I was reading about Andy Griffith, and one surprise is that he has a degree in music, and I don't remember ever seeing him do anything musical. Maybe I missed it, but I've watched pretty much most of his series and was never aware of that, so that was kind of a surprise. As I said earlier, I watched the whole series. I don't remember watching the pilot, but I may have. But we watched the series religiously because it was, as good as anything else that was on. And but that was during the big drought of space travel. We had gotten spoiled during Apollo. We'd have a launch every few months, and it was very exciting. And we went to the moon, and what was going to be next. And I knew I couldn't be an astronaut, but I wanted to go to space someday. I figured I would. And then they canceled the last few Apollo missions, and everything went dark. And for years, we had no launches, no space travel. That was from 72 with Apollo 17 until 1981 with the first shuttle, which to me was almost an eternity. I remember vividly having discussions with people about how we just don't have a space program anymore, and there's just nothing going on, and they've dropped the ball, and I was personally offended and frustrated at the lack of progress in our space program. So that show, to me, was kind of a fun thing, escapism, where we actually got to see some space travel, and I liked that. That's all I got. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Yep, I'm with you on that, Brenda. Well, what could have been, you can always watch the Apple series For All Mankind. They're into the 1980s, and they're going to the moon, or to Mars. So no surprise there. Which, by the way, has gotten I think one of the best streaming program last year, and it's pretty good. I actually enjoy it. A bunch of folks, alumnus from Star Trek, the first iteration, the spin-offs and that from the 1990s, are working on this show. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, go ahead with your comments from KE5ICX.
KE5ICX in the net. This is NV5F. Yeah, you mentioned possibly people wanting to comment on special effects and music, and I don't have much to say about the special effects. It was standard, low budget, kind of cheesy special effects. But I noticed there were moments in the music where it was, pretty standard, but then there were a few moments where it seemed like they were making an effort to do some kind of unusual things with the music, almost like they were doing an homage to 2001 or something. They just had some very, very kind of unusual choices on the music and in certain spots. And kind of wanted to bring that up, and that's about it. Pretty late. I'm pretty tired. I think everybody else is too. But you've got me interested in For All Mankind now, so I'm going to have to check that out. Anyway, thanks for running the net. Everybody have a good night, and I'll turn it back over to you, NV5F.
All right, very good. Thank you, Virginia. Thanks for your comments, too. I really enjoyed what you had to say, and you kind of changed my view of the series after that. I think I might even watch some of the episodes. Who knows? They're really not that bad. I'm kind of getting engrossed in the one they've got here. Okay, I will fix the movie list. I think I missed a date in here, next week's movie, so I'm going to just simply put my foot down and say it's Cerebrum, Serebrum, from last year, and I'll fix the dates on here. But if you are interested, you can find it there, or just send me an email if you aren't already on the email list. I will provide you with the information as to the next movie, as well as the links, for those of you who may be listening for the first time or are not aware.
Elvis,
to send it to an email to me. That's Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-ray KE5ICX @yahoo.com. I'll put you on the list. Or if you don't like that, you can always go to Facebook and look for Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow and Movie, and sign up there, and you can get the information, hopefully with the right dates on here. So next week's movie, 2021 Cerebrum. We'll see you all next time. I'm going to go see if I can sit through Lost in Space here. This is Majesty Smith, I think, is the episode tonight. I'm not sure. See y'all later. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.